Hi there, I'm Sean Doman. In this video, I'll be reviewing Who Not How by Dan Sullivan with Dr. Benjamin Hardy. I'll be reviewing the paperback version as well as the Audible version. If you like this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Okay, so to get started with some basics, the paperback copy is about 200 pages long, and the Audible version is about 5.5 hours long, but if you listen to it on a faster speed, you can get it done in less time. Turning to the paperback for a moment, the structure of the book is pretty straightforward. It is broken into 4 sections. Part 1 is freedom of time, Part 2 is freedom of money, Part 3 is freedom of relationship, and Part 4 is freedom of purpose. So in general, the audience for this book, in my view, is a intro level or a beginner entrepreneur. Somebody that wants to make a big effect and have a big splash, but they're just getting started and they need information about how to do that. The purpose of this book is to provide you with information about how to begin working with more people and doing less things on your own. The name of the book, Who Not How, is essentially a way of describing what you should do when you encounter certain situations. Instead of asking, how can I do this? The book suggests that you instead ask, who can I get to help me with this? Or who can do this for me? So it's a very compelling idea and it's very interesting, but as I'll be discussing, I think that the book could use some more detail in helping us understand how to actually put this into practice in real life. Okay, so to start with the things that I like about Who Not How, essentially the book is very much suggesting that you work together with other people to achieve greater goals. So teamwork, collaboration, things in this ballpark. And these are absolutely great things. So I definitely praise the book for that. The book also has some very interesting arguments in it with respect to how teamwork and collaboration is viewed in our society. Essentially, the book presents an argument that we have been brainwashed since we were in grade school that we should not be working with other people on certain things. For example, you shouldn't be working with another person on an exam, or you shouldn't be working with another person on an essay. And this is definitely true. However, my recollection of grade school is that if I needed to work with a tutor to help me with a specific subject, that's something that would be okay. And there was all kinds of other ways that I was working on teams when I was in my younger years. If I was on a basketball team or a volleyball team or something like that, I was learning teamwork there, and it wasn't something that was necessarily always condemned or something that was always discouraged. Teamwork is something that sometimes we do things in teams and sometimes we do things individually. So I do applaud the book for suggesting that we collaborate more and we work in teams more. I don't necessarily agree that we've always been brainwashed to try to do it all ourselves and that we shouldn't be working in teams. Another thing that I like about the book is that it contains a lot of interesting anecdotes that it uses to make its points. There's all kinds of stories about different people. Some are still with us, some have since passed on, some are historical, some are current. And there's all these stories that are used in the book to illustrate the points of the book and to discuss ways in which people needed to work in teams to get to the next level or to achieve the thing that they were trying to achieve and that they were failing to do on their own. So I really like that. If you want to see examples of the people that the stories are based around, if you look below in the comments section, I've essentially listed all of the different people that are mentioned in the book and who have anecdotes centered around them. On a similar note, the book also has a lot of really great quotes. So if you're the kind of person that is into quotes and likes to write down quotes and collect quotes, there's all kinds of quotes throughout the book that have varying degrees of wisdom in them. So again, if you want to see in the description section below, I've basically given you the names of all of the people who provide quotes that made it into this book. When it comes to the Audible version of the book, something that I really like that isn't included in the paperback copy is there are these interviews that occur between Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy at the end of every chapter, in which Dr. Hardy essentially interviews Dan Sullivan and says, well, we just finished that chapter and this is what we talked about in that chapter. Dan, tell me more about what you think about this subject and what you think about the chapter. And through these little interviews, I find that I get a really good sense of the author, Dan Sullivan, and the doctor, Benjamin Hardy. Dan Sullivan, to me, comes off as a really relatable, likable, folksy, intelligent guy who has had a lot of great life experience and a lot of really great lessons to share. He essentially discusses how throughout his whole life he's tried to take a non-competitive approach to what he does and merely offer value and merely do things for other people. And he describes that he's always been able to find a way to succeed by doing this. And I think that's a really great thing. I think that's a really smart approach. So I really like that. And I like being able to hear him in his own voice and get a sense of him and Dr. Hardy as well. In some cases, I actually think that some of the things in the interviews provide important information and important insight that probably should have been in the book. It should have been in the paperback version as well. So maybe that's something that they would want to add in future editions. Perhaps they could add the interviews, the transcripts of the interviews in the back of the book or between the chapters or something like that. I also really like how the book handles a few subjects, procrastination and essentially self-confidence or self-image or how you see yourself. So with respect to procrastination, essentially what the book suggests is that procrastination is a sort of wisdom, or a signal is probably a more precise term, and that if you're procrastinating from doing something, there's probably a good reason for it, and you may want to listen to that. I mostly agree with that, and I think that it's a good idea for people to listen to themselves and trust their own intuition. However, sometimes there are things in life that we just don't want to do, and we procrastinate and we do other things because we don't want to do that thing. But ultimately, that may be something that only we can do, and that, eventually you just have to get over it and do the thing. And in those moments, there's actually a lot of opportunity for growth and a lot of opportunity for learning. So I don't necessarily agree that procrastination is always a signal and that we should always avoid staying away from the thing that we don't want to do. Sometimes that's just how it goes. So I don't entirely agree with how the book treats that, but I do like how the book suggests that it's okay to procrastinate and it's a natural thing that we all do. With respect to self-image and how we treat ourselves, I think the book also does a really great job of talking about how we should all have high standards for ourselves and for the people around us. If you're working with somebody and they don't meet your standards with respect to your working style or how they're treating you or how they're treating other people in your life or how they make you feel or any number of things, essentially the book is suggesting that you should listen to that and that you should probably be away from that person. You should probably not work with that person. Even if it means losing a client, even if it means losing somebody who may otherwise be beneficial to you, you will probably be better off in the long run. Of course, it's hard to say, but that's the side that this book is coming down on. And I really appreciate the author discussing this and putting it in that light. I think that that's a good message and it makes a lot of sense to me. Okay, so now to discuss some of the things that I don't like about the book. Essentially, my main complaint with this book is that right on the cover it says that this book is a formula to achieve bigger goals through accelerating teamwork. My problem is that I'm really not seeing the formula part of this book. Although the book has these 4 chapters or 4 sections that I've mentioned, and it's got a fine framework, and there's lots of anecdotes, and there's plenty of content, I find that it is kind of light when it comes to details, and it doesn't draw the connection between how you go from wanting people to work for you and then how you actually get them to work for you. Of course, if a person has a lot of financial resources, it's easy. You just pay people to work for you. If a person has a great reputation, they're famous or they're well known, people may work for you just for the benefit of getting to work for you because you're a known person. But for the rest of us who may not necessarily have huge financial resources or huge networks or huge reputations, it doesn't explain in the book how you can go from wanting to work with a lot of people to getting them to do that. It doesn't really discuss incentive. It doesn't really discuss why somebody would come and do the things that you don't want to do only to help you achieve your mission. There's actually a quote on the back of the book from somebody who gives it praise, who says, "Anyone who reads Who Not How will know exactly how the best entrepreneurs create freedom." And I don't think that the person has read the book because it does not teach you exactly how. it doesn't really provide much direction at all. So that would be my biggest complaint with respect to this book. However, this is simply a first edition. It was released in October 2020, so perhaps there will be a future edition, and perhaps the author will be able to understand that there's a greater need for direction, and perhaps they can add that into a future edition and kind of clear this up. Another problem that I have with the book is that it actually doesn't give enough credit to the how. The book talks a lot about who. The book even has a sense of humor, and the author is willing to, in the early chapters, the author is willing to kind of poke fun at himself and say it does sound a bit like a Dr. Seuss book to say, you know, I'm a who needs a who, and you need a who for you to help you, you know, achieve the how in your life. It gets to sound a bit silly, but by focusing so much on the who and not on the how, I think that the book is kind of going too far and kind of starts to lose touch with kind of some basic truths or some basic understandings of how things work. All of these who's are very important people, but the how is ultimately what is going to cause the results that we want or produce the effect that we're trying to achieve. So the how is very important, and it can't just be about who all the time. Another problem that I have actually is that the book talks about how if you are tasking who's to do something for you, you should not care about how they achieve the result, how they achieve the goal. And I really don't agree with that. If I want somebody to do something for me, it may be true that I should not micromanage them and that I don't want to stifle their creativity and I don't want to annoy them and I don't want to hinder them. But at the same time, to achieve the effect that I'm trying to achieve by hiring them and having them help me, I probably want them to do it in a certain way, and it probably is important to me that I know how they're going to do it so that they don't do something that is illegal or immoral or is in some way going to cause a bigger problem than if I had just done it myself and had not hired them or enlisted them or done whatever I was able to do to get them to do something for me. So I think that is another major shortcoming that the book has, that by focusing so much on the who, it really throws out the how. But at the end of the day, the how is just as important as the who. So I think that the book does this in a few places where it kind of sets up a false dichotomy, or it sets up an argument that it says, you know, you must only be here and not be there. And I think that doesn't make sense. So I think that the book makes a few arguments like this that don't totally hold water, and they kind of cause funny leaps of faith that the reader needs to make. At the end of the day, this is the kind of book that is for self-help purposes. It's not a philosophy book or a critical theory book. I would hope that it would be a bit more practical and a bit more pragmatic about how to achieve the effect of who, not how. Lastly, and one of my larger complaints about the book as well, is that it seems as if in a few places that they are definitely trying to sell you on joining a mastermind group. And to me, because I've already bought the book on paperback and I've got the Audible version, I've already bought the book. I should be getting some value from the book itself, and I shouldn't need to look to an exterior group for any future value, and I shouldn't have to go and sign up for something else. So in the beginning, in the middle, and near the end of the book, there's some sales pitch type language that I think that the author should soften or perhaps remove in future editions, because if a person's bought a book, they've already got the book. You don't need to keep selling them throughout and say, you know, do you want to be successful? Do you want 10 times results? Do you want 100 times results? Yes, of course I do. That's why I bought the book. So by the time I'm halfway into a book, I would kind of expect it to be underway, and I would hope that we would be starting to get into the detail and the nitty-gritty of what the book is saying and how the book can help me. Okay, so to conclude, I would say that Who Not How is a good book if you are an intro entrepreneur and you are looking for some new lessons or looking for a bit of a mind frame shift or a paradigm shift when it comes to working with other people. If you're doing everything yourself, you are probably eventually going to either need to figure out better ways to do it, or working with other people may also be a very good way that you can take things to the next level. However, if you're trying to find a manual or a guide or a formula as for how to do that, I don't necessarily think that you're going to find it in Who Not How. There's all kinds of other great texts out there that provide more definition around this. And for all of the complaints that I have about this book, I definitely want to say that it's just my opinion. That's just my reading of this book at this time, and it doesn't mean that it wouldn't be useful to you, and it doesn't mean that it wouldn't benefit you. So I would very much encourage you, if you're interested in checking out this book, see for yourself, form your own opinion, produce your own reading, and see what it can do for you. That concludes my review of Who Not How by Dan Sullivan with Dr. Benjamin Hardy. If you liked this video and found it to be helpful, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you'd like to purchase Who Not How, please use my Amazon link below. Thanks for watching. As always, I'm Sean Dillman.